The clock on the wall reads a quarter past midnight.
Why? That's the simple premise of this film. But where are my manners? We went bluntly into that introduction. I am your narrator, and my goal is to unravel and pull apart the individual threads of one particular mind, Mr. Kevin Williams. Who is this man, you may ask? Well, hold on, we will establish that. But Mr. Williams is many things. He's an architecture student, I know, a tragedy. The premise, like introduced in the start, is why. Why does Mr. Williams do any of these things he does? And while today we could go and look at all of his work and say, what's good about this? What's unique? What's so special? That is a foolish notion. It's rather much more interesting for you and for me to pull apart why he does any of it. Because you see, Mr. Williams has these domains, as he calls them. They are rigor for his architectural work. So if you're as curious as me, then you would want to stay around for this.
Master Plan, Phase 1, Side A.
Now, Mr. Williams, as the peculiar character he always is enamored by the past. He always looks toward it for his precedents in his architectural work, and while the precedents he picked doesn't matter if they are innately good within themselves, it's how he interprets it into his own architectural language. You see, the historical notion of how much of these precedents have any worth in his work doesn't really matter, and it's not for me to tell you that. I am not a historian. But it seems he always has this formality when it comes to piecing them together. And while he obsesses grudgingly on the Gothic styles, he does have influence in other facets. He is most certainly influenced from these styles. It's an adoration to look towards the past and actually understand what makes these styles work, not simply in aesthetics and the design qualities, but in their fundamentals, what they actually persuade. Mr. Williams seems to embed this with a language of critical reduction. It's important to know what sticks and what falls off when you take your architecture and place it against the wall, what actually matters. He always seems to have this rebirth where his designs are initially founded by these archaic principles, but then they are rigged for the designs of today. It's a contemporary sense to satisfy new needs whilst reliving past traditions. Mr. Williams, as you have observed, loves his fair share of hand drawings, and if you have seen any of these films in the past few minutes of this segment, you would have realized these two things are very different. Where's the connection? Well, I'm glad you asked, my dear viewer, because it takes us to bare bone storyboard, a concept that mirrors similar qualities to Leon van Schaik's toy block drawings. These operative diagrams know what they are, what sensibility they will become, and while they seem to formulate from the depths of his mind, their relationship to the final product makes one feel these are methodically planned and understood. These drawings are not fully realized nor inimitable, as they are extremely bloody ugly, but it's from these sketches that his foundation is laid upon. And while these drawings are often never documented, lost upon the thousands of notes, their founding language is forever woven into his architecture. They hold a hazy clarity to those who peer into their glance, but for their author, their sporadic nature makes perfect linear order. Their simplified storyboard essence, as Mr. Williams puts it, redacts architecture to essentials and leads to a realized tangible quality that animates these static pictures to the same manner his mind seems to play them out.
You listening to me? I look into your eyes and I can't tell whether you're getting anything I'm saying.
Now, if you have a pair of eyes just like me, you will have seen that Mr. Williams seems to have a very highlighted fixation on the cinematics. Cinema enamors his work, and while he's no director, he has taken some very heavy cinematic influences. It's from this critical reduction from his architecture that he comes with this critique on film. Knowing what he wants, what's planned out, is important, but it's also apparent that he knows what he doesn't want. And while they are done cinematically, they don't seem to lose the architectural tangibility. And while they suffer a bit of dramatism here and there, they are obviously exploration of his mind. It's how it works. He does these films not because he can, but because it's almost a need. It grapples, it's a living piece of how he works. These aren't still renders, they aren't stationary. Architecture moves and we move through it. And it's almost as if these films are the moves he makes in his own realm of understanding the architecture. And while conventional architecture methods are utilized, it's like the great Brent Allpress once said, a drawing lies its teeth off, but the camera never lies, does it? However, what we place in the frame does. Because you see, my dear viewer, me, the narrator, Mr. Williams, are the same person, two sides of the same coin. The Mr. Williams that presents himself to the spotlight is a very different person to me. I critique his work. I question why any of it matters. Because I dictate what his work is worth, not the critics, not the tutors that have obviously aided to his work, but I alone can see his work truly, dictate what it's worth. I can put it on a pedestal ever so high, or toss it to the gutter, knowing it's not good enough. But one thing is always apparent with Mr. Williams' work, and that it consistently always strives to be better. I suppose that's all that matters. But I often wonder about that coin spinning, heads or tails. What does it land on? I guess we'll never know. But it doesn't matter, heads or tails. What matters is why we design architecture, why we design the way we do. Why do you design